Geronimo is not dead. Yes, my most anticipated VR game ever is still in development, and I'm still in regular contact with the developers. If you are uninitiated, the game Geronimo is a virtual reality project that is in development by a two-man team from Dark Matter Studios. The game aims to be a sort of ground branch, ready or not, very much a high-fidelity first-person shooter in virtual reality, initially planned for a PC VR release with talk of it coming to Quest later in some sort of different format. And the developers recently published some more media to the Discord channel and to their YouTube channel after having done a complete overhaul of a lot of the underlying systems in the game. I've been in contact with Pebbles and Stilton, the developers behind this project, since I saw the initial trailer. And I haven't really talked about the game on the channel since back in November, but they've come a long way since then. And through our regular contact, I still have a ton of confidence in this project. We still don't have a release date, but the moment that we have one, I will absolutely let you know. But I did want to run you guys through some of the clips that they have recently posted because this project is looking phenomenal. And if you are ever looking for an excuse to buy a VR headset, my dudes, this might just be it. And as we dive here into the very first clip I want to share with you guys, I want you to keep in mind that all of these clips are a work in progress. This is not necessarily reflective of the final version of the game that we will ultimately get our hands on. But in this first clip, we see some pistol shooting under night vision, and a couple things stood out to me here. First, I noticed how high fidelity the night vision filter was. And this is something that Pebbles and Stilton have iterated on over and over again. And even in this video, you will see a couple different versions of their night vision work. But what I'm seeing here is a very high fidelity representation of white phosphorus night vision tubes. They've got some noise in the background, so if you look closely, you'll see some specks of noise and white light kind of shining through in the field of view. And then what also looked interesting to me is the depth of field that they managed to achieve. If you've ever operated under night vision before, you'll know that it doesn't necessarily present this very crisp image where everything is in focus at all times. Instead, you have to be very careful how you dial your tubes in to adjust the focal point and adjust the point at which all of the objects in your field of view are in high resolution and in focus. And what that results in is that things close to your face are often very blurry. And here we see that the pistol, the magazine, and all that stuff is very much blurry, and you have that nice depth of field achieved, and it looks fantastic as far as I'm concerned. We also see that the way that the magazine is inserted into the pistol is very smooth. A lot of VR games have kind of like a snappy motion whenever you insert a magazine. They seem to have achieved a high level of fidelity in that regard as well. And then we see an IR laser being used. And then what really stood out to me is how well they managed to represent the muzzle effects. And so when a round is fired, you get a lot of overpressure coming out of the muzzle, and you can see that smoke and that flame rising up through the nods and even distorting your ability to actually see the target, which is certainly something that happens if you've ever fired under nods before, especially in an overgassed AR or something with a less forgiving muzzle device, or indoors. Then you know exactly what I'm talking about. So pretty cool footage here from the range, shooting some steel plates, and definitely enjoy that. Next up, we've got some daylight pistol manipulation on the range. Looks like we have a delta point or similar red dot mounted on the pistol. And we also see some penetration moving through that steel. So there's a chance for some level of bullet penetration. Now, is a pistol cartridge going to actually penetrate a steel target at 15 yards? Yeah, probably not on the range, but it is cool that they are working with some penetration and some materials that will affect the way that we fight in kind of those CQB environments. You have to consider whether or not you're behind drywall or stucco or adobe, and kind of what the construction materials are in the building that you are taking cover in. It's going to affect how you engage targets. The other thing I noticed in this clip is the various grips that you can achieve on these slides. So you have like your typical overhand combat reload sort of slide rack, and then we can also grab that slide from the rear between the thumb and the index finger, as is more traditional. So great to see those options as well. And in this next clip, the developers show off some rifle manipulation under night vision and under white light. And it looks to be an HK416 that the developer is playing with. And on that, he's got a laser and a white light and an EOTech EXPS3. At least that's kind of what it looks like. We see a second iteration of the night vision filter. Now we have some peripheral vision as well, which is kind of an interesting take. After I finished recording my video, I sent my audio track over to Stilton from Dark Matter Studios to make sure that I got all of my information right, and he corrected me. One thing he pointed out in these night vision clips is that they are actually the same night vision feature, like they're the same iteration. It's not a reworked iteration. And the reason that in one of these clips you have peripheral vision and the other one you don't is because where you don't have peripheral vision, it's just too dark outside. You don't have it. It's just, yeah, it's too dark. Anyway, so there's a tidbit that most games, I think, miss out on. When you're wearing nods, yes, of course, you have that bright, high-fidelity image that's developed by the tubes and delivered to your eyeballs, but you still have some peripheral vision, although it's difficult to make use of that peripheral vision whenever that high-intensity light shines into your eyes and kind of washes out and ruins your night vision that your eye is typically capable of. But the other thing I noticed here is the weapon manipulations themselves. We see the IR laser in use. We see the white light floodlight in use. Both of those look very good. And then we also see some weapon, some magazine change manipulation. So you're able to conduct like a rapid combat reload where you quickly drop the magazine, slap a new one in. And then we also see a bolt release getting worked, which is a unique feature that is really tough to come by in virtual reality. Only a few games that I know of really offer it. And they seem to be allowing you to slap the side of, in this case, that AR receiver to activate the bolt release, send the bolt forward whenever you have a last round hold open from a magazine going empty, which is a really excellent attention to detail that I absolutely appreciate. And these next two clips are really kind of the meat of the video. And these are the two clips that they've showcased over the last week or so, really showing off the work that Pebbles and Stilton have done over at Dark Matter over the last couple of months to rework a lot of the systems that are underlying the game. This is the first time the developers have really showcased the new character models, some of the new weapon models. We see the other player that is in the field of view is rocking like a multicam black combat shirt, and he's got a multicam pattern chest rig that has no doubt been customized to his liking, rocking an ops core or other similar high-cut helmet with Peltor Comtacs and what looks to be PVS-31 night vision. I think the camera perspective is also very interesting because you have this nice helmet cam. It makes me as a content creator hopeful that that stuff is going to be available to us so that we can make kick-ass videos and, give it some cinematic flair. The shooter whose perspective that we are looking at is using a SIG MCX with a suppressor and a tack light and a laser mounted on the various M-LOK rails that are on that SIG MCX. And then the other player seems to be using some sort of AR platform or M4 platform. He's got a what looks like an Aimpoint T2 red dot on a Unity style riser with a magnifier behind it and a laser mounted in front as well. So great to see those customization options coming to the game. And then we're also seeing some pretty kick-ass CQB for the first time in any of these clips. Both this clip and the one that you're going to see next appear to have been recorded at the Abbottabad compound where Osama bin Laden was killed. Okay, so this was the other thing that Stilton pointed out to me. In these two final clips, I attribute both of these clips to the Abbottabad, Pakistan compound, and that's not actually the case. Stilton corrected me and shared with me that this clip, the one you're looking at right now, is actually a clip from the Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi raid in Syria a couple years ago, which is also interesting because I don't know if they've confirmed that that was the map before. This might be the first time that's actually been confirmed. I did call it though. Go and look at my last video back in November. I called that shit and I didn't know at the time, so I earned it. Yeah, Kobe. Of course, the game is called Geronimo, and that was the objective name given to Osama bin Laden when he was eliminated by members of U.S. Special Operations Forces in Abbottabad, Pakistan. I noticed that as Pebbles and Stilton approach the compound on that SIG, you have the dust cover closed, which is a really cool attention to detail. I'm loving that they captured that in their manual of arms and their weapon manipulation modeling. And then after the shooter begins firing, we see the dust cover on that SIG come open and remain open for the duration of the video. So really cool attention to detail there. And we also then notice that this SIG has an EOTech low-powered variable optic, and then it's got an offset red dot sight on it. So again, a tribute to the weapon customization that is possible in the game. We also see the finger of the operator's off the trigger unless he's firing, which for me anyway, might be the first time that I've ever seen that correctly modeled in virtual reality. If you're not actively engaging or immediately anticipating to be engaging a target, your finger is not on that trigger, and it's great to see that make it into the game. This is also the first time we've seen doors getting worked since the rework has been done over the last couple of months. The door handle interaction seems to be seamless. I'm seeing no crazy hiccups, no weird mechanics, and it's tough to model doors in VR, guys, in any game, but especially in VR. And everything I'm seeing is showing that critical mechanic is in the game and it's working as intended. So a great sign there as well. Now let's take a look at the very final clip. So this is probably my favorite clip that has been released recently. It's the highest quality image. It's the best render. It's occurring kind of at dusk. It's still on that same Abbottabad, Pakistan map. And you're also seeing it from the shooter's perspective. It looks to be recorded using a left eye dominant capture. So that's why you're not seeing directly down the sights. This time the other shooter is wearing full multicam top and bottom with a combat top, combat bottoms. He's got a suppressor on his handgun, and he seems to be working a SCAR heavy, an FN SCAR heavy with a red dot on it and a tac light. And there might be a laser mounted over on the other side as well. We also get a great look at the kit. Once again, this time the other shooter seems to be wearing, again, that Ops Core high cut helmet with Comtacs over his ears, an extra battery pack on his back, PVS 31 nods mounted over the top, and he also has an IR strobe on his helmet. We see a long whip antenna on the rear of his plate carrier, certainly an authentic touch there as well, and a dump pouch located on the rear of his pistol belt. So I'm very eager to see, if that level of customization, if you can actually choose where all of that stuff goes and really achieve that level of fidelity that is kind of being showcased here. They approach the compound, and we notice that our shooter this time is using an M4 and AR platform. He's got an EOTech EXPS3 mounted on top. He's got a tac light on his right rail, and he has an INGAL laser mounted on top. So again, a very authentic representation of what I might expect U.S. Special Operations Forces to be using in this sort of environment. The INGAL wasn't quite out and humming when UBL was killed in Abbottabad, but nonetheless great to see that option in the game as a customization type of feature. And I do think that these kind of close quarters battle engagements in the courtyard and then once they are in the building showcase some of the AI behavior that is extremely important in any tactical shooter and something that the developers seem to be paying a lot of attention to. They catch the first two sentries by surprise. You hear like an audible gasp from the sentries as though they are startled as our shooters come around the corner. First guy goes down. We see the blood splatter right away. I think the blood splatter is definitely exaggerated, but I'm okay with that in a video game, and I think it's important to get that target feedback, and it helps overall with kind of like the stylized perception of close quarters combat, and it gives it a very visceral feel. So I'm good with that. The second shooter ducks behind a vehicle. The perspective that we're seeing, the shooter chooses not to engage immediately because he doesn't see a weapon visible. Then when that dude who took cover behind that white vehicle reemerges, showcases a weapon, he ends up getting engaged by both of our friendly guys. So really cool to see AI taking cover, reacting in a startled way with an audible gasp, and then seeking a position of advantage, even though our guys had the drop on them. We see some seamless manipulation of white light and overt red laser coming off of that INGAL, which I think is really cool. I don't know exactly what the control scheme is going to be to manipulate your weapon, but the ability for the perspective that we're seeing at least to rapidly transition from that overt red laser, switch on the tac light, switch it back off, still have the red laser going. That's all great indicators. And while our shooter is doing that, his partner is placing an explosive breach on the door. It's great to see that charge going at the locking mechanism, that explosive charge being targeted against the locking mechanism. And then we're also seeing that shock tube, that non-electric shock tube coming off the door. So I've talked a little bit about the breaching mechanics before. It's great to see the explosive breach represented in an authentic way. That was a special ask that I worked with Stilton to make sure got included in the game. And if you look very closely, as he initiates the charge, you can actually see a flash rapidly work its way down the shock tube to the door handle and set off that charge, which is freaking phenomenal as far as I'm concerned. As our shooter peeks the corner, he's got one enemy in the second room deep that is basically standing in a fatal funnel, but he's also suppressing the doorway. So I'm imagining that AI behavior as he's responding to the shooting outside. He happens to be at that threshold as the breach is initiated, and he immediately starts hosing down the fatal funnel. So love to see that. We also see a flashbang being implemented here for the first time, and it seems to be a really good implementation of the flashbang, though the audible signature of the bang is very quiet. quiet. It's not having an overt impact and, blinding, stunning, and making completely incapacitated the people in the room. Our guy still has to win the gunfight because, as we know, a flashbang is a diversionary device. It does not disable a target. It distracts them for a fraction of a second to give you an advantage on entry. And that is exactly how it seems to be working in this game, which is, high praise in my book for that level of attention to detail. And the next AI we see get eliminated in this round is probably the most impressive indicator that I've seen so far in any of these clips. And that's an AI who is prone in a sleeping roll with an AK in his lap that is intending to engage our guys as they cross this next threshold. To me, that means that these AI are going to have various positions that they can be concealed in. They can move to these positions freely. And, Pebbles and Stilton have talked openly about this system a little bit in Discord. And the way that they generally describe it is that there can be various different positions. Here we see confirmed a laying on your back prone in a sleeping roll kind of position, and who knows what else they may come up with. But the AI can move to these positions and choose to take up one of them to challenge players on entry, to really give you a unique look. That means the AI is not going to just be standing around like idiots getting killed. They're going to try to hunt you, and they will suppress you, and they will maneuver against you, and they will seek positions of advantage. And that is all important in a tactical shooter, in my estimate. So clearly I am excited about this game. I think it's on track. Everything I'm seeing, I'm loving. I still have questions that I have not yet had answered, and I've had discussions that I can't share with you guys in a lot of detail, but I'm excited to see what comes next. I think my two biggest kind of unknowns at this point are, one, how hard is it to die? Because we see these videos of Pebbles and Stilton running the place, and clearly they're trying to showcase their game and, put their best foot forward. And I expect them to do that. Absolutely want them to do that. But I'm eager to see how easy it is for you to fail an operation, because I think that these missions should be challenging, and for the game to be rewarding and replayable, players have to be challenged. And then the second thing I'm very eager to learn, and I think that is very important, is what the player experience, what the gameplay loop is going to feel like. Are we going to be spawning in and doing terrorist hunt over and over again until our eyes bleed? Is there going to be some sort of campaign feature? Is there going to be some sort of procedurally generated experience as Pebbles and Stilton have aspired to in the past? And right now we don't have answers on some of those questions. Stilton was kind enough to answer my two big questions. First, he said that they did, in fact, die multiple times while trying to record the clips that you guys watched today. So that's a good sign. That means the game is difficult. And they died even though they knew generally where the enemy should be in this scenario. So that's a good sign. And then he kind of described how they envisioned the gameplay loop coming together, at least initially. First, a player will choose a mission and an objective to achieve on that mission. Once they've done that, they'll select their infill type if multiple are available. They're trying to work on a vehicle insert, a heli drop-off, a heli rappel, and an insert via boat. That would be sick. After selecting the mission, the objectives, and the infill method, you then execute the mission, complete the objective, something like hostage rescue, high-value target killer capture, gather intelligence, defuse bombs, destroy a target. And while something like terrorist hunt might be included, it is absolutely not the highest priority, and they're looking for some diverse gameplay. Once you accomplish the objective on the mission, you then exfil, sometimes even under pressure from an enemy QRF. That all sounds fantastic. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. So as I find those answers and as I'm able to share them with you guys, I certainly intend to do that. If you want to keep updated on all things Geronimo, all things tactical gaming, be it in VR or in a traditional PC fashion, this is the place to do it. I am Controlled Pairs. This has been Geronimo, and I will see you guys in the next one.